Charles, the Fulton County grand jury confirmed there was no widespread election fraud in 2020. Could they be seeking perjury charges for witnesses who otherwise said that there were and repeated the big lie to that effect?
Absolutely, Michael. And I think that that's one of the first hurdles that needs to get out of the way. We all knew this, and this was something that was widespread in terms of how accepted it was. But in order for someone to move forward on charges of trying to disrupt the lawful election, you do have to establish that a lawful election occurred. Now, of course, there was very little question as to whether this was a free and fair election. But for the purposes of legally clearing that hurdle, now that the grand jury has already decided that and put those findings out as part of this limited release of information in the report, there can be no question, and it just makes it a lot easier for Fani Willis to move forward.
So Mark Meadows has now been subpoenaed by both the Georgia grand jury and Trump's special counsel. So my question is, why aren't the state and federal prosecutors just sharing interview transcripts?
That's a great question. And I do think that part of what may happen is you may see some cooperation among prosecutors on the state and federal level. But I do want to go back very quickly and underscore how significant it is, although the reports have not been fully verified, of Mark Meadows being subpoenaed by the DOJ. I've said for a very long time that Mark Meadows is the linchpin for any sort of prosecution and possible conviction with respect to former President Donald Trump. He was around Trump as chief of staff. He was privy to who Trump was talking to. He knew the contents of those conversations. And so it is very significant that Jack Smith is moving forward and trying to get Mark Meadows to talk, because for me, he's been the missing piece in terms of testimony and information that we don't know but may be vital.
So I may be pulling at a string here a little bit, but what's your sense of the timing of indictments from Fulton County, and how soon do you think the Justice Department could follow suit?
Of course, Mike, that's the million-dollar question. I think that a lot of it is going to depend on who are the new targets. Who is the target of the perjury investigation? We had some really high-profile names in terms of who was testifying in front of that grand jury. You're talking about Rudy Giuliani. You're talking about Senator Lindsey Graham. The higher you go on that list, the more certain Fani Willis and the Fulton DA's office has to be about their ability to prosecute that. So for me, it's really going to depend on who the grand jury was talking about with respect to the perjury charges or potential perjury charges, and that's going to dictate the timeline. I'm hoping that we learn a little bit more in the coming months, but I would say safely we would be looking at 30 to 90 days.
So with all these subpoenas flying around between the state and the feds, a former White House official has told The Hill Trump has confidence that he won't be charged for mishandling documents, those classified documents down Mar-a-Lago. What are the chances the DOJ actually winds up prosecuting Trump on multiple fronts?
I think that it's a fair chance. I think that, honestly, before we were seeing classified documents pop up all over former elected officials' homes, it was a much more certain thing. And while I do understand those cases to be very much so apples to oranges, I do think that what happens now in terms of that conversation is that it becomes far more politicized. It's not a matter of whether Trump did it. It's not a matter of whether you can prove it. It's a matter of when you have someone who is, for all intents and purposes, declared as running for president in 2024. The Republican talking points have painted this as Biden's DOJ. And now with these other evidence or other examples, rather, of classified documents appearing in other places, is that something that Merrick Garland and Jack Smith want to pursue from a political perspective, not from a legal perspective? And so that ultimately shapes that question. But barring that, and even if they decide to move forward, it is fairly likely that we could see multiple indictments move forward with respect to prosecuting former President Donald Trump.